I dream about these, and this is how it should be done, etc. However, the one word is difficult, is I just want to draw out. Obviously, I've talked about resources. Rafa said there's limited resources. Other countries have said limited skilled resources, limited data, etc. The word difficult is also a word I would throw into that pot. Right, so I'm now going to bring this session to a close. Thank you very much to Jose, Rafa, for the presentations and the questions and comments from the others. So we now move on to input-output tables. So very, very briefly, obviously in the last 25, 30 years, supply and use tables have gathered momentum, gathered interest. Their roles and responsibilities in statistical offices have increased substantially, and it's still a growing area. But obviously Leontiev, when he was around, he didn't do supply and use tables, he did input-output tables. And there is a much larger community out there interested in input-output tables. I just want to repeat one of the guidelines yesterday. Supply and use tables first, then you derive the input-output tables. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share a presentation just to introduce this next section with some principles and guidelines, but with a sort of focus on input-output tables as opposed to supply and use tables. There will be some parts which will be repeated, but I've kept the repetition to a minimum. So hopefully, can I just check with Stella? Can you see my screen as a full screen?
Yes, we can see the full screen.
Okay, thank you very much. So I don't need to, in quotes, reintroduce myself. Oh dear. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to briefly describe a compilation of input-output tables, some key principles and guidelines, an overview of the compilation schematic, which you saw yesterday, and then a brief feedback from the UNECE questionnaire into this area. And I like this slide for one reason. The UN handbook I have flashing at the bottom. All the other handbooks have some connections with the UN handbook, so you can't do this in isolation. So compilation of input-output tables. Firstly, I think like supply and use tables, input-output tables should be at the heart of the national accounts. If you're doing supply and use tables, my personal view is that the overhead is not significant in producing input-output tables, and I'll touch on that in a moment. This is exactly what I don't want when I'm running. So I've now plugged in my PC, so that issue won't come up. So I've mentioned the production of supply and use tables first, then input-output tables. And obviously, there's a lot of linkages. The supply and use tables is very close to our survey data collection, whereas input-output tables, we have to make a range of assumptions. I think when you do the supply and use tables annually, to produce input-output tables, the investment is up front, whether it's the systems, whether it's the technology assumptions, which models you pursue, etc. Annually, thereafter, is handling the negatives and a brief review of the assumptions. I think maybe I'm making it sound a little easier, but I think it's very important to note that there's a delineation with that upfront investment versus what do you need to do annually. Now, the next point is a very sensitive point. The most frequently used methods to derive these tables are Model A, Model D, and a hybrid. I'll touch on the hybrid in a moment. Now, I haven't said you must use Model B or must use Model D, because this particular aspect has been a sensitivity for over 50 or 60 years, and there is no consensus agreement, because different users have a different interest, and for some users, Model B may be what they would like, or Model D. But most producers are using methods to, in essence, produce Model A and Model D. You can produce all if you want, no one's stopping you, but the users are producing quite often using the basis of Model A and D. Now, the hybrid version is something that I contributed to coming up with many years ago. So, for example, you're going to have industries that have secondary production that has nothing to do with its primary production, and they do not have separable units. So, for example, in the construction industry, we know what the inputs will be to make the construction output, whether it's a bridge, whether it's a road, whether it's a residential dwelling, etc. On the other hand, we say we know what the inputs are to make those products. If I now move to the electricity industry, likewise, we know what the inputs are to make electricity. So, for example, the inputs being gas or nuclear or advertising or insurance or marketing, coal, etc. However, in the electricity industry, they also put up pylons. Pylons are construction as a product, but the inputs to make pylons are not the same as the inputs to make electricity. But the inputs to make pylons are also not quite the same as the inputs to make construction output. So this is where you need to have a hybrid, i.e. a mix of technologies, to avoid clearly negatives that will be coming along later on. So we'll touch on these sort of issues in this session as we go along. So I just gave you that example as a flavor. Yesterday you saw this schematic. In the top left-hand corner, you have the supply and use tables as compiled and as presentations have shown in purchases prices. And then we convert them to basic prices through the reallocation of taxes and subsidies on products, the reallocation of taxes and trade and transport margins, and then the removal of imports and of goods and services. At this stage, like the purchaser price balance and the basic price balance, it's a product by industry scenario. Then, through the use of product by product tables or the industry by industry tables, in terms of the technology assumptions or the fixed sales structure assumptions, we create the product by product or industry by industry tables themselves, which then leads to Leontief inverse, the cost multipliers, the output multipliers, the links to trading value added, global value chains, etc. So it's important to note on the left-hand side in current prices, we're now going to concentrate on this session to the bottom left-hand side. There are not many countries that compile the bottom right-hand side. However, if you have supply and use tables in basic prices, in previous year's prices, you apply the same approach as you do for current prices to generate the input-output tables. So it's something to note if you are developing such systems. So moving on to the questionnaire I mentioned, again, thank you for responding. 18 countries responded. 13 countries compiled the IO tables. 11 countries derived them from the supply and use tables, and 4 countries are planning to start that process. The compilation frequency varies. 6 countries produce them on an annual basis, 5 on a 5-yearly basis, 1 on a 3-yearly basis, and 1 ad hoc. Those compiling annual supply and use tables also have a recent input-output reference year. And in 6 countries also use an IT balancing tool for the process. And again, I would echo annual supply and use tables and annual input-output tables is the model that you want to aim for. So also, without missing out on this particular aspect, there are various challenges. Now, some of those challenges in producing input-output tables are the same as the challenges of producing supply and use tables. For example, lack of tools or lack of experts or lack of reliable source data. But also there are different challenges. So for example, how do you handle negative values or linking the quadrants of the table, the different quadrants? So it's important to note some challenges are specific to input-output tables, some challenges are common with supply and use tables. And again, I'd like to say thank you very much on behalf of the UNAC that people have responded to those questionnaires. And it also reinforces the picture I said very early on yesterday. Different countries are doing different things for different reasons. There's no perfect situation, and some are more right than others, but that's the state of play. So that's my introduction to this session. I'm now going to hand over to this. Going to be 3 presentations, one from the Turkish Statistical Institute, one from the National Statistics Office of Georgia, and one from the IMF. First person we'll move to is Mustafa Koyonku. I apologize if I've got the pronunciation wrong, but over to you, Mustafa.
Yeah. Koyuncu.
Kyonju.
Yeah.
Practice that whilst you do your presentation. Thank you.
Okay.
If you can share your screen.
Yeah.
And if you can.
Sorry. Yeah. Now, can you?
Yep, that's fine. Off you go.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Mustafa Koyuncu from TurkStat. I am expert in the National Accounting Department. Supply and use and input-output table from compilation to dissemination is under my responsibility. In this presentation, I want to show you the current situation of TurkStat about the current situation of TurkStat system about the stats and supply and use table, also input and output tables. Also, I want to show you NA Builder, which is our tools for compiling the both SUTs and IOTs tables. Firstly, I want to show you our current situation about the SUTs and IOTs. We have the benchmark year for SUTs table 2012. This table is published at current price in 2016. And we are complying to extrapolation SUT for annual and quarters. For annual SUTs, we have only at current prices, but important one not published yet. Also, we have for quarters, SUTs for quarters, we have both current prices and previous year prices. Also, these tables are not published yet. For benchmark year, we have lots of we had a lot of data sources. During the compilation analyzing process of SUT, all available data sources were used. For the benchmark years, the level of products our industries were kept as detailed as possible. For 12 supply and use table survey was our main data source. Also, administrative data and balance sheet and income statement and all available data sources in the national account system were used. 12 SUTs were compiled at detail level in 262 products group and 264 industry, and published at 64 product and industry groups. Our SUT system 2 validation concept. One of them is purchaser prices and other one is basic prices. We published all tables for 2012. And then we have an extrapolation SUTs. For extrapolation SUTs were prepared for the estimation of independent annual accounts. The annual calculation of GDP by production and expenditure approach were carried out by the system of supply and use table for each year. And also I want to show our system for quarter side. We have quarter SUTs for each quarters, and in t plus 3, we have a sum of quarters. After that, in t plus 9, we have an independent annual GDP by current year supply and use tables. And then we revise all quarters in current prices. So after the double deflation, we have a revise the quarters in the previous year price, and the end of this process, we have a independent annual GDP by sum of previous year price of quarters. The completion side, we have a balancing process based on the product's balance. Balancing was performed at detail as possible. To make the process more simple, data was added to system at 5-digit and 3-digit CPA level. Tables were aggregated and balanced at 3-digit levels for CPA. For extrapolation SUT, we have a method is applied by using important one is we are using coefficients of SUT 12. As I said before, also we are using to double deflation for obtain previous year price tables. Very shortly, I want to tell our balancing process for SUTs. As usual, we have a manual balancing and mechanical balancing. For mechanical balancing, we are using the RAS method. The aim of this process to eliminate the small residuals of every product group, which cannot be explained the reason. Important one, transformation from SUT to IOT. For 2012, we had only the product by product input and output tables. In order to deriving the IOTs from SUTs, we used Ullmann procedures. Ullmann procedures are mathematical algorithm designed for complying product by product input output tables, which are based in essence on the product technology assumption, but avoids by step-by-step procedures negatives. That means eliminate the negative. It's very important. For 2011, IOTs was compiled at 3-digit level products group and published at 64 product group. For domestic output and for imports, IOTs were prepared and published. What is the software deriving for IOTs from SUTs? We are using SAS and Excel for the estimation. Also, we are using Excel called NA Builder, which is developed by Mr. Jose Holmes in the context of the IPA project. We are using this tool for generation of supply and use table, automatic balancing process, transformation of SAS to symmetric input-output tables, also complying extrapolation SUTs. I want to show you our tools for transforming IOT table from SUTs very quickly. This is our tools. It is Excel with macro, of course. This one is the
Mustafa, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
To show the Excel table, you need to close the PowerPoint and then
Yeah,
to
of
share the
course.
Excel.
Yeah. Now, can you see my screen?
That's great now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I want to give a brief information about NA Builder. What is the NA Builder? NA Builder is as an application to create national account structure and to add, edit, balance, and report on national account data. As I said before, this Excel application has been developed by Mr. Jose Holmes. He's a freelance expert from Netherlands. In these programs, there are 21 setup sheet. You can see each sheets and of course their information. Actually, before create some tables, we should start with defining the classification, because classification is very important, both supply and use tables, also for input and output tables. After the defining the classification, we should like this. We should define or identify the codes and labels for each classification. For example, for this one, I will show the A20 detail levels for both NACEs and CPAs. For this example, you can see the codes and the labels. After that, we should pass the template side. Its template means create one tables. You can, of course, after defining this template, you can use this template for creating different tables. For example, for creating the model B, model A, model B, model C, and model D, we can use the same template for both these tables. But important one, to create a template, we can use this button. In this side, we can see the predefined templates. Maybe I think you can see the supply tables, use tables without value watts, and also a use table. For example, let's do supply table. If you click the plus button, use predefined template supply. Evet means in Turkish yes. You can use this classification, and we can choose different classification for different template. And after that, we can use this template for implementation. In implementation sheet, you can use the different sheet names. What is this one? This one is method 1. Method 1 means in here I will show. Means product tables, product technology assumption, model A. For 2, it means industrial technology assumption, model B, and model C and model D. What we'll use for creating our input-output table, we are using the unknown methods without negatives. It's depends on product tables, product technology assumptions, but without negative. I want to show implementation. We can set up our tables from here, or let's do remove sheet. Firstly, we have a supply table with A20 detail levels, you can see. Also, of course, we have a use table with same detail levels. After that, we can go in here. We want to create our input-output table with all model. Firstly, we should create our sheets. If we make like this, yes, done in 1 second, very quickly. Of course, there is no data inside of these sheets. In order to create our tables, we have some rules. These rules created by Mr. Jose, but important one, we have a developer version of these tools. We can change all things in these Excel files. In order to play rules, we choose our rules and play the rules. Now, sorry for that.
Mustafa,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt, just to say you've
Yeah.
got just under 2 minutes. Thanks.
Okay, I will talk very, very quickly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, after that, I think, yeah, rules, because why it is wrong? I'm trying to play rule 1, but I choose 6. Yes, done. Now we have a input-output table with model A. Very quickly for what we did in the past and now, very quickly I will show the element methods. Yeah. In order to create input-output table with element method, I will playing this rule. I'm playing this rule, and now I have input-output tables without negatives. It's very important for us, and it is a very useful tool. In order to learn more things, you can use this website. This website also created by Mr. Jose, and you can see the slides and some examples. And also, I want to show, yeah. Sorry for that. No, I think yes. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes. In order to create more tables, we have different kind of settings. For example, for GRAS on the for RAS for balancing the supply and use tables, we are using RAS settings. Also, if you want to create SEM matrices, you can use these settings. Also, we have lots of settings to create different tables. And yeah, that's all my side, I think. Yeah. Only I want to show very, very brief challenge. Actually, not challenge. What we want to want in the near future. Actually, we want to make a main revision, and yeah, sorry for that. Now, yeah. Finally, we want to publish our annual SUTs. Also, we need a new benchmark years. As I said before, we have an old benchmark year, 2012. In order to make main revision, we have a new SUT survey. And also we should have a annual survey to support our extrapolation SUTs for the other years. In a very, very near future, we want to make main revision. Thank you for your attention. That's all for my side.
Thank you very much, Mustafa. That's really useful. So, sort of things I'd like to just draw out from Mustafa's presentation. Firstly, notice there was over 260 products and industries. Not quite square. Strictly speaking, it is rectangular, although there's only a difference of 6, but nonetheless, key thing to note is quite a lot of products and industries. Second thing is the benchmark, and I think I like the way the previous year price links are also integral to that work. Something that we haven't really talked about that much yesterday and today is double deflation.
Yeah.
If we're doing supply news tables in volume terms, then one of the beauties of that approach is double deflated GVA. Now, there's different ways of doing that. And if you think about my schematic, the U bend and of the H approach, almost the top part where you can follow through the U, that in a sense is the recommended approach. And what that does, it has clean values and clean valuations of the prices used for deflation. So you're not deflating at a mix of purchaser price and basic price. You get down to basic price, you deflate, and then you work your way up to purchase price. And it's very important. Otherwise, implicitly, your double deflated GVA will have a reflection of all the oddities of having a hybrid approach. So keep it clean, so as to speak. So the double deflation of GVA is very important to draw out there. I think it's also very impressive that you can, in the Turkish situation, produce models A, B, C, and D. It gives you that flexibility. That's really good. I've got 2 questions to get rolling. So people who are in the attendees, please think about if you have any questions for clarification or further information. Thanks for putting the website link into the chat. That answers the first sort of question. 2 questions I have are, firstly, you went with the product by product approach and the almond procedure. Just to share with the attendees, what was your logic and rationale, or what were the drivers to do that? I just want people to experience a little bit of your thinking. And then the second question I have is, obviously you've got tables, and this is important for everyone. You can compile tables at a certain level, but because of disclosure and other issues, you publish them at a different level, much more aggregated. So I think disclosure is a very important issue, because obviously we're collecting the data on a certain basis. Regarding this, can you sort of also explain what happens between the not published and the published? Because you had a number of occasions where you had tables that have been compiled but not published, what is it that you do or you have to do to move them to a publication status? So there's two questions. One, what is the logic and rationale of pursuing product by product tables with an Almond procedure? And second, what is it you do to move the compiled tables from a non-published status to a published status?
Okay.
At the same time, before you start, Mustafa, if anyone else has any questions, please have some time. Thanks. Over to you, Mustafa.
Okay. I want to start with first questions. Yes, actually, we applied all methods for create the input-output tables. After that, we choose one of them. It's like this, not directly we choose one of is best. Of course, we tried all methods, and then after applying all methods, we have some negatives. Why we choose the Almond methods? Yes, after applying these methods, we have some negative, and in order to reflect this negative, we choose the Almond methods actually. And after that, yes, this is our best. And then why? Actually, we are calculating the both product by product and industry by industry. For 2012 is our very, very big main revision. Maybe for future revision, we are planning to publish both product by product table and industry by industry tables. I want to answer your second questions. Yes, we are complying as possible as the detail levels, but you know the situation. We are complying in detail level, but there's some how can I say it, some bureaucratic problem. For example, for confidential data problem and other problem. We can publish only 64 detail levels. So that we are of course we are using the bridge to aggregation to make aggregation, and after we have detail levels, supply and use tables and input output tables, but without publishing we cannot share any person or any international organization, and of course also Eurostats.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for that, Mustafa. I just want to repeat those briefly because I think for attendees, it's interesting to see Mustafa's explanation for the tables that they chose, which is fine, but it's also to put that in the context of what I said earlier on, model A, B, C, D, and the hybrid. These have been discussed for 50 years. There's no consensus. It's very important to understand the producer's logic and rationale of what they've chosen and why. And that's the key thing for me here. So although people prefer model A and D, it's important to recognize different people's interests of what they've driven. And obviously disclosure is a very important part, because in a sense, the compilation may take place at a different level of the balancing, and the balancing may take place at a different level than what you publish. It's just recognizing that there are different levels of aggregations at different stages of the process. And importantly, what's published has to deal with the issue of sensitivity in terms of the disclosure. Okay, any last moment questions or comments from anyone in the audience? Does someone disagree with what's been said? Please, can I encourage you? If not, thank you, Mustafa. No one's disagreeing, which is always a good thing.
Thank you.